So we flew Frontier from Mercer County Airport in Trenton, New Jersey to Orlando for our last cruise. And I know Frontier gets a lot of grief for issues that they have, but we've got a doozy for you. Guess what they did? They gave away Mike's seat while he was sitting in it. But we'll tell you more about that later. We're going to give you a couple stories about our issues that we experienced with Frontier. We don't want to bash them. We're not trying to say that we won't fly Frontier ever again because the airport in Mercer County is very convenient for us, and it's actually a nice, easy flight down to Florida. But again, they did have some issues, and we had issues coming and we had issues going. So the first issue that we experienced was when we were at Mercer County Airport. They usually have self-check-in, and Frontier encourages you to use self-check-in because if you don't, then you have to pay $20 to speak to an agent. So there were no agents in line or at the counter when we went to check in. So I went to the self-check-in kiosk and I pulled everything up. I got my tags for the bags, and one of the Frontier agents came over and scolded me because I went and got my own tags for the bags.
But you were not the only one getting the tags for the bags.
Yes.
There were other people there also. I think there were 3 or 4 that got their bags done.
That is true. And she proceeded to say, you can't use those tags. You need to stand in line and meet with the agent so that we can check you in. Okay, fine. So we got in line, was what, 30 minutes, I think?
Yes.
It was about 30 minutes that we had to wait in line to get to the agent so that the agent could rip up the tags that we had just printed out from the self check-in kiosk and print new ones and weigh our bags. So the big hubbub was because they did not have an agent at the scale by the self-checkout in order to weigh our bags, and therefore we all had to go to the ticketing counter so that we could put our bags on the scale to weigh our bags. So that was the big hubbub of why we had to stand in line. It is what it is. It was not, a big deal, really no sweat off our backs. We got through the line, we got our tags, we went and we handed our bags to the TSA agent, checked in, and then off we were, ready to go through TSA. So to our pleasure, when we walked down the stairs to go through TSA, we found out that Mercer County actually has a line for TSA pre. And we have TSA pre, so we thought, oh, wow, this is a nice plus in a very small airport. I don't know if people are familiar with Mercer County Airport, but it's a very small airport. Frontier is the only carrier that flies out of there, and there are only 2 gates. So the need for TSA pre is, not significant, but it's a nice plus to have. So we went through TSA pre and no issues until we get to scanning your bags, your carry-on bags, through the scanner. I went first. I went through the metal detector. No problems. Mike, unfortunately, got hung up a little bit. So I'm going to let him tell you what happened while he was trying to put his bags through the scanner and at TSA.
So what happened was there was an agent behind the bag scanner, and I put all my equipment, all the video stuff and all that, into a container and left it on the rails because she was the one that was going to push it through to get it scanned. So I turned around and walked toward the metal detector and looked around, and she was gone. My bag was sitting there, and the woman behind me took my bags and pushed them forward And the TSA agent at the metal detector did not like that. She's yelling at her about not pushing the bags through the metal detector. And all of a sudden, the other woman put a backpack down by itself, not in the container. So she said, looking at me, going, "Go get that bag has to go in a container, it's going to break the machine." I said, "It's not my bag." She goes, "Go get the bag and put it in a container, it's going to break the machine." And once again, I said, "It's not that bag." And as she's saying that, she's getting closer and closer to my face.
And louder and louder.
And louder and louder. So now she is starting to yell at me about putting the bag in a container so it doesn't break the machine. I've learned, my father was a yeller. So what I used to do with him was I would just go, "Hey, let them yell it out. When they calm down, they'll just say, okay, and go on from there." She turns around in my face and goes, "Do you speak English?" It was very embarrassing, first of all, and I already spoke English to her 3 times. But the woman was a little bit, because when I came through, the woman was very upset.
That was the woman that was behind Mike at the bag scanner. She came through the metal detector first. I was waiting at the other end, waiting for Mike to come through. I already saw that his bag came through, so I was waiting there because I wanted to make sure that no one came up and took the bag, so I wanted to sort of stand there and watch it. She came through and she actually addressed me and said how rude and unprofessional the TSA agents were, not only to her, but to Mike, and she couldn't believe the behavior and how they were speaking to people. So she was even more fired up, I think, than Mike was. He has a very high tolerance, I have to say, before he loses his temper. So that's very good on his part. He stays very calm. I kind of get a little more excited a little faster.
Get your jersey out?
I get my jersey out, as I say it. But yeah, both of them were quite upset. And, you know, it kind of put a little bit of a damper, but we're happy to say that once that was over, we just waited, you know, for our plane to come in. Once the plane came in, it was smooth sailing. Everyone boarded the flight. I think we actually took off within 5 minutes of what our expected takeoff time was, and the flight was smooth the whole way down, and we actually made up time in the air and landed a little bit early. So, you know, that was going down for Frontier, but our tale does not end.
It never ends on this one. It's almost like you cannot make these things up.
No. So now, fast forward, our cruise is over. We've had a great time. Sad to get off of the cruise ship, but, you know, we have to get back to reality, get back to our jobs. You know, work is waiting. So we checked everything in. Everything as far as self-check-in in Orlando, piece of cake. No problem. Weigh the bags, check them in, no problem. Go through TSA pre. And just a side note, in Orlando, this was the first time we used TSA pre in Orlando because we just recently got it. Oh my goodness, it was the best. We were through security within less than 5 minutes. It was so quick. And if any of you travel through the Orlando airport, you know that TSA, that line is long and you can spend a lengthy amount of time waiting through those lines. So if you're going to do more than a few flights a year, we highly recommend it. And if you like, you know, we could do a video of what it's like applying for TSA pre, what the process is, and how long it takes. So put that in the comments below if you would like to see a video on that, and we could do that for you. So in Orlando, our flight was delayed by about an hour. There was some maintenance that had to be done on the flight. While we were sitting in the terminal area, one of the agents was, how shall I say it, not very...
She was upset. She was not. She was very rude to a lot of
She
people.
wasn't very friendly.
Yeah.
I don't know that she was upset. I think that she came off as if she just didn't want to be bothered by anyone. I think she may have been orienting a new agent and was trying to let that agent take the lead, which is a great thing while you're training people and to be there as a backup. But her answers to this newer agent were very curt, very short. And when they got notification that the plane needed to have some maintenance done, she sat down behind the ticketing counter with some of the other crew from Frontier. So another person that works in the airline, one of the supervisors, came over, asked her a question about, did you follow this procedure to call in this maintenance delay? The whole terminal could hear this girl saying, yes, of course I called it in. Why are you asking me this? And I have to say the supervisor handled herself very well, very professionally. And she said, I'm just asking you a question. I'm just trying to find out so that we can get communication out to everyone. So we waited, and that was fine. Then we find out that the flight is actually oversold by 3 seats. So they started offering passengers some compensation if they would fly to a different airport. So Philadelphia International Airport and Newark International Airport are 2 airports that are in close proximity to Mercer County. So they offered to fly 3 passengers to one of the other airports and give them $800 compensation, which is a nice, I think, deal, you know, if you have the ability to fly into these other airports. We unfortunately did not have that ability. Our car was at the airport, and then we also would have no one to pick us up in one of the other airports. So we decided not to do that. We're going to fast forward a little bit to the time of boarding. This unprofessional agent, she gets up and she stands herself in front of the scanner to scan the boarding passes. She speaks with a few of the passengers who need extra time to get on the flight and tells them it'll be a few more minutes, and then she'll scan their tickets. She'll allow them to get on because they need extra time. So then after she proceeds to do that, she calls Zone 1. We were in Zone 1.
Yeah, explain to them what we bought seat-wise. We had 3 seats. The middle seat was open.
Yes, Frontier has a new bundle that they've brought out within probably, I think, the last month is when they started to introduce this new bundle. And the new bundle is if you upgrade to these premium seats, which I guess for Frontier would be the equivalent of their big front seats that Spirit has or their business class. You know, I don't know how you would want to explain it because it's not a true business class or a first class. What they do is they block off the middle seat. You've paid for the window seat and the aisle seat, and you have that seat free so that you have more room. You can put baggage under the seat in the middle where no one is sitting. You can put bags on the seat after the flight is taken off. You can lift the armrest. So it does give you a lot more room and you're not as cramped. So we got a decent deal, so that's why we chose to buy those seats. It just gives us a little bit more of a nice experience on a budget airline. So Zone 1, these particular seats always load in Zone 1.
And they're at the very front of the plane.
Yes, they're at the very front. It's only the first 2 rows on either side, so it's really only 4 rows or 4 seats. You know, that have the ability to book this. So she's letting people from Zone 1 go through. 2 or 3 people in front of us when we were going to get on the plane, she walks away and they scan their boarding pass, they get on the plane. She's talking to someone else, not even looking at the screen to make sure each and every boarding pass is scanning correctly. So she comes back, she's standing in front of the screen when I scan my boarding pass, and then she walks away again. Eyes off of the screen, she's talking to a friend. So I flip to Michael's boarding pass, and I scanned his. It turns green, and it beeps as if it went through. So we get on the plane. And we get ourselves seated and comfortable and no issues. Well, fast forward about 40 minutes sitting on the plane waiting to have the doors closed to take off, and a different agent gets on, very nice girl, very sweet. She gets on the plane and she says, I have to verify if there are 2 passengers on the plane. I need to know who's sitting in 2C.
Yeah, that's me.
And 34C. So she looks at Michael and she says, can you tell me your name? And he says his name.
Yeah.
And she looks at the printout of the manifest of all the passengers that are supposed to be on the plane. And she says, okay, yes, I see that's you. Can I just see your boarding pass to verify? So I pulled up the boarding pass and I showed her, and she says, okay, everything matches. We didn't have you checked in.
Right. And
we didn't have that your boarding pass scanned.
But what they kept saying was that we were calling you out front, but we were already on the plane.
Correct, so we wouldn't hear. And
then all of a sudden, this man shows up next to me. And he says, you're in my seat. He shows me his ticket, which is my ticket, which is in my seat with his name on it, smelling like alcohol, going, I want my seat. I said, no, this is our seat. That's when Kat got up and showed him our boarding pass.
I pulled the boarding pass up again and I showed him, 2C, we've been on the plane, this is Mike's seat.
Yeah, and I go to him, I said to Kat, I said, they sold my seat. What is going on here? And he keeps shoving this ticket in my face, and then he goes, this is the reason I want to tell what kind of seats we had. Well, I'm going to sit in the middle there then.
So then I very calmly, I'm proud of myself, said, no, we paid extra to have this middle seat open. You won't be sitting in that seat. You're going to have to talk to the agents and have them figure it out.
Right. And I guess I was getting a little bit upset at the time. So he starts hitting me in my chest, going, just settle down, guy, just settle down. Everything will be okay. And I'm like going, why are you hitting me in my chest? It was just insane.
Yeah.
So the agent, I guess, came by and grabbed him, but he really smelled like alcohol. I mean,
I didn't smell it. I was by the window.
Yeah.
I wasn't by the aisle, so I didn't smell it. But Mike said he really, really smelled of alcohol. So honestly, I know that airlines have very strict policies about allowing people that are intoxicated to fly, and I'm surprised that they didn't flag him.
Yes. So then she pulls him off the plane, takes him off. He now has another ticket for 34C.
So
34C.
she had gone to the back of the plane. She verified that 34C, whoever was supposed to be sitting in that seat, never checked in, didn't didn't scan their boarding pass to get onto the plane and was actually not on the plane. So she proceeded to tell the gentleman that he could sit in 34C, and he came by and...
Yeah, he came by me and said, there's a woman standing out on the gangway who can't make this flight because of you.
Right. So tries to tell Mike that this woman, who probably was one of the oversold seats, and they were trying to get her on the flight also, understandably, didn't make the flight because Michael was in his own seat.
Yes.
So anyway, a couple things that I noticed. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. I don't know. My understanding is that before an airline actually gives up an empty seat for someone that didn't check in, I know that they announce in the terminal, the person's name, what airline, what flight they're on. Please check in at the ticket counter. Last call, your flight is leaving. And then they come onto the flight and verify that those seats, in fact, are empty and that person did not check in for their flight and they're not physically on the plane. And then the airline takes those empty seats and will book anybody that's on standby, or if the flight was oversold and they need to get a few of those oversold passengers on. But to call someone in the terminal and not actually verify that they're physically on the plane and you've already issued a ticket to someone else for that seat, I'm just blessed, Michael is as calm as he is, because if he was a hothead or if the guy that got on was a hothead, there really could have been problems and somebody could have gotten hurt, or it could have been worse. And thankfully, I think everybody overall handled themselves well, but
the comment going back with him telling me that I left the woman out of the gangway was a little bit too much for me, though. It wasn't our fault that they gave him a ticket for a seat that was already taken.
No, it was not. And we know that things happen, but we thought that maybe this story, you
get a chuckle out of it, or
give you a little laugh to see, another issue with Frontier. And again, like we said, we will fly Frontier again. It has not turned us off to flying Frontier in the future, but just please be aware, if you do fly the budget airlines, I think you have to be a little bit more attuned to what their policies and procedures are, because I'm not 100% sure that they truly follow their policies and procedures all the time.
Hey, if you like this video, please like and subscribe.
We're trying to grow our channel. We really want to bring you great content, great stories, tell you a little bit about, our adventures traveling. So please subscribe. It's free, and we really want to grow and bring you more interesting content.
Cat and Mike, the ship set sail on a journey that'll never fail. With